right, so let's jump into it because we were talking about best practices for selling a home, and you mentioned something. You mentioned that today's seller has two basic options that will decide what type of selling program is best for them. You said that they need to choose between highest price and least hassle. Now, I think this is good. Can you explain all that to us?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is both, right?
I like less hassle. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I know. But the fact is you rarely get both. It's kind of like if you buy a car, want the highest quality car at the cheapest price. They don't tend to go together. So what we're talking about here in real estate is the difference between selling your home retail to the family that's going to live in it for the highest price, or taking the cash offer with the least hassle. Highest price and least hassle, they don't often go together. So I just want the sellers out there to be aware of that. And to really drive this home, whether the seller chooses to sell retail or to that cash investor, that home or your home will end up being sold to the highest paying family who's going to live in it. The question is whether or not you, the seller, want to opt for the least hassle and you insert a third party investor between you and that highest paying family who will eventually live in it. No, I'm not saying anything about cash offers. As you know, we use the heck out of them, and we use a lot of them. Some of the other realtors do, but everybody makes their own decisions for their own reasons, and there's nothing wrong with either option. There's nothing wrong with taking a cash offer. There's nothing wrong with going retail. You just have to figure out what it is that you want to do.
All right, so what's your advice? Do you recommend upgrading the home before you sell it?
Obviously, turnkey homes are going to sell for more money than ones that are in poor condition. But the question is, what do you choose to do before selling your home? So be specific on your upgrades on your home. So some upgrades, we're going to have a bigger payback or a bigger bang for the buck, if you will. I would highly recommend that well in advance, you discuss your upgrades you're going to do with a trusted realtor. Now, why a realtor? Because realtors work with buyers and realtors know what buyers want. If your goal is to upgrade your house in order to sell it, talk to a realtor, not a contractor. Contractor wants you to do everything.
Right.
The realtor will tell you what to do and what's not, what not to do. So for example, there's many times where I get there early, they're early in the process, they're not selling for 6 months, and they're talking about, hey, we're going to upgrade this whole thing in this house. And I'd say, okay, you can do that. What's your goal? And I said, well, because we want to be able to sell our house for more money. And I would say, well, you can do what you're talking about, but if you want to take that same amount of money, do this other thing over here, you're going to get a much bigger return on it. So I always recommend talk to a realtor about that, because they're going to tell you what buyers will pay up for and what buyers won't pay up for.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice, because a lot of people sink a lot of money into that stuff that's not going to really make a difference for them. Yeah. Now, what about repairs? What repairs should a seller think about making?
Okay, well, so everything in the house should work the way it's intended to work. So, for example, we just saw a listing. I was just on KSI News, and I use this as an example. It's a picture of a bathroom. So imagine a master bathroom in a house that has a light bar above the sink that has 12, it's supposed to have 12 lights in it. But this one only had 3 lights in it. So 9 of the little spaces, sockets were empty. And the 3 light bulbs were in a fluorescent bulb, a incandescent bulb, and an outdoor floodlight.
Pretty.
No, it wasn't. And the thing is these people are asking $1 million for this house, and they think they're going to get full retail. So here's the thing that I always tell my sellers is I will walk the house. I will tell them, do this, don't do this. If you want to sell your house the most money, do this. And if I would see so much as 1 light burned out in that light bar, I would tell them to replace all 12 of them. Because the 1 light, if you replace just the 1, it's not going to match the others. So it's a concept that I call spend $10 to save $10,000. And here's why. Buyers are going to walk in that house, and if, let's say, there's just 1 little light bulb burned out, the buyers, and trust me, I have shown 10,000 homes in my career, so I know this for a fact. They're going to look at that and say, wow, these sellers are trying to sell their house. They know that we're going to be here today, and they didn't even bother to replace that light bulb. They didn't even bother to fix that. So what else haven't they fixed? And the amount of money, now they go from a position of excitement to a position of caution. And tell me who pays more for a house, excited people or cautious people? It's always excited people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the light bulbs are so easy. It's such an easy thing, but it impacts the way you see things, right? The visual, absolutely. All right, so what are the best practices for once the home is on the market?
That's a great question. So there's a couple practices when it comes to showings. When you are a seller and you know you're going to be having buyers coming by. Have your home show ready at all times. That's dishes out of the sink, stuff off the countertops, beds made, pillows fluffed, dirty clothes off the floor, right? All of
The
that.
mother-in-law
So
test is what you're talking about.
yeah. Yeah. So think of model homes. Are there dirty dishes in the sink of a model home?
Nope,
Are the beds unmade? Are there dirty clothes on the floor?
never.
So anybody who's thinking of selling a house, if anything you listen to me, remember this quote. You are not selling a home. You are selling a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And fantasies don't have dirty dishes in the sink. They're trying to sell the fantasy of if you buy this home, if you live in this home, your life will be perfect. There will never be dirty clothes. There will never be dirty dishes in the sink. It sounds funny, but that's the concept. That's the reality of what buyers are doing is they're thinking of a fantasy. Now, second thing, don't block showings. Don't move showings. So here's one of the dirty little secrets of real estate. When an agent asks to show your home, let's say at 1 p.m., that's because they're going to be coming through your area with their buyer at 1 p.m. Now, that agent may be showing that buyer 8 to 12 homes on that day, and they probably have another buyer's appointment after that. They're going to start at one end of the county, and they're going to be going to the other end of the county. They're passing through your area at 1 o'clock. So the dirty little secret that agents want, the dirty little secret is that real estate agents want their clients to love the home they buy, but the agent really doesn't care which home it is. So if there's a seller out there that makes it difficult to show, saying, no, I can't show it at 1, but how about 4 o'clock? Well, the agent's simply not going to show that house. So if there were 12 on the schedule that day, now there's 11, and that seller just lost their opportunity to sell the house. So I know it sounds awful to say all that, but I'm just being truthful. That's how it works, right? And then the third one, and I will say this, for the love of God, please do not be home during the showings, right? Remember earlier when I said you're selling a fantasy? Well, that's what a buyer's doing when they walk through your home is they're fantasizing where the Christmas tree is going to go, where the family's going to have Thanksgiving dinner, where the kids are going to be watching TV. So here's the problem, and I know this from a career of showing homes to buyers, where that not one single time did I ever show a home that the seller was present. Not one time did that buyer of mine ever want to make an offer on that home. Not one time did they say,
Wow.
hey, I really like this home. Let's see if we can get it. Zero. And I've shown well over 10,000 homes in my career. So I am 0 for 10,000. So I know this to be the case. Don't be home. Don't answer the door and let them in. Don't go stand in the backyard. Don't stand in the driveway. Never let them see you. And please, for the love of God, don't escort the buyers through the house and tell them the story about how you got the closet door handles from a flea market in India. True story. Okay? Don't do that. Remember that the buyers, I know it's funny, but I still laugh at that, but it was true.
Yeah.
And I'm just standing there like, I'm representing the buyers and I keep thinking to myself, I'm looking at the seller and inside my head, I'm thinking, please shut up.
Yeah. Please stop talking.
Please shut up. And I may have had some expletives inside my head at the same time. But anyway, remember that.
When somebody wants to move, how far in advance should they start planning in order to sell?
Well, you got to plan ahead. Now, if you're a buyer, I mean, you can just go out this weekend and, find a house and be in escrow this weekend. But when you're selling your house, it's a much longer process.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say plan ahead. It takes longer than you think to properly market a home and get it for sale. So while it can be done very quickly, it's best when you can plan the systems out properly. So while I have in my career met people on a Tuesday and had their house up for sale on a Wednesday, it's not a good plan. So one of the things they taught me in the Marine Corps is back plan everything. Start from the final result and then start working backwards and timeline everything. So here's what the back plan looks like. I would always ask my sellers, okay, in an ideal world, what calendar day do you want to move out of your house? In a perfect world. And they would say, just give me a date, whatever the date is. And I'd say, okay, from that date, and I'd write that date down. And then I would say, now let's assume a 30-day escrow. So now we're back 30 days prior.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we think, well, let's assume 30 days on market. So now we're 30 days before that. So now we're at 60 days. Then we figure you've got 15 days pre-market time. That's all part of the marketing plan. Well, now you're at 75 days. And you can't pre-market a house until you have the photos of it. So you figure 5 days ahead of that for the photographer. Well, now you're at 80 days. So can you go faster or longer in a plan? Yes, you can. But in an ideal world, if you've got a really good agent, the agent's going to have really good systems. And if you run your systems and you run them the same every single time, you'll get predictable results. And if you decide to change things, which can be done, but you start to introduce variables into that process and your predictable results become not so predictable.
How long? What's the average that it's taking to sell a home right now? Is it still 30 days?
Well, it depends. If it's a good home, call it a good tract home.
Yeah.
Upper first-time home buyer market, that's a good tract home. Those things are flying off the market. If it's like retirement communities right now, they're really hard to sell. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they're not that those communities are not moving because there's a normal, progression through life where people will, if you look at why are people selling houses, there's death, divorce, destitute, displacement, meaning you got job transfer. Those people have to sell. Doesn't matter what your interest rate is, you have to sell. The next two reasons are diamonds and dependents. Diamonds, you got married, you buy your first house. Dependents, you have kids, then you upgrade your house. So you're going to upgrade from your initial house 4 times. And then when the kids move out, you're going to downgrade twice. You're going to downgrade into a single story, and then you're going to downgrade into a retirement home, and then you're going to move on. That last process of people in the retirement communities, they are just from father time, they are kind of being forced to move out. But the people that would normally be transitioning into their houses, they have a 2.5% interest rate. They're not moving. So while people do from father time move out of retirement communities, there's not people moving in just because there's so few houses being sold these days. So it just depends on, what you have, where you are. Like I said, good homes that everybody wants, tract homes, things like that. Those are flying off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple offers, all that good stuff. And the opposite end of that spectrum is those retirement communities are just really hard to move right now.
Interesting. I was curious about the time, so thanks for that. All right. Before we run out of time, what are your thoughts on choosing an agent? Because that can be a big one. You want someone you can get along with and who's got a history of success. What are the best practices there?
Well, that's easy. Just look at how they market themselves. Do you see them everywhere? Do you hear them everywhere? If they're good at that means that they understand the marketing, the concept of marketing. They know how to market themselves, and it means that they have a budget for marketing, and they've cracked the code on marketing, which means they're probably going to be pretty good at marketing your home. So I'll give you a couple examples. Is the person marketing, are they solving your problems? There's two different types of marketing. There's direct response marketing and there's image marketing. Direct response marketing is when somebody's solving the problems. So, for example, you guys hear on the radio all the time, I always talk about the cash offer platforms or the guaranteed price platforms, the sell and stay, the buy before you sell. That's all direct response, meaning somebody's got a problem where they own a home right now and they want to buy another home, but they're stuck. They're thinking, wow, do I sell my house first, potentially be homeless, and then have to go buy another house? Or do I try and buy this other house while I still own mine, possibly get stuck with 2 houses at once that I can't afford? So all of my advertising is all direct response advertising. We're always solving a problem. The other side of that is image marketing. That's the people you see in the grocery carts. Those little advertisements.
Yeah.
That says, hi, I'm Joe Realtor
Mm-hmm.
at whatever brokerage. Call me. Like, here's my phone number. You're like, call me. And I think, why?
Right.
Why
What
would
are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. The advertising, why? Why would I call you? And so some basic concepts of marketing right there. So the easiest way really is just look at the way they market themselves. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Does their advertising solve problems? That's the easy answer there.